When Emperor Basil died in 1025, the borders of the Byzantine Empire were mostly secure. The emperor's wars had brought the Balkan Peninsula back under Roman rule. In the east, fixing up the old, worn-out forts and putting new soldiers in them had made the border stronger. But in the years that followed, from 1025 to 1067, the Eastern Roman Empire had 11 different rulers. During their time, the empire's power slowly faded. Then, in 1068, a man named Romanus IV Diogenes became the new emperor. He was an experienced military leader, but also a bit reckless. The new emperor led 2 campaigns against the Seljuk Turks, who were becoming a big threat on the eastern border. He had some success, but not a lot, though he did recapture the fortress of Hierapolis near Aleppo. In 1070, Romanus went back to Constantinople to handle some government business. He made a lot of changes that people didn't like, but they had to be done. He put one of the best Byzantine generals, Manuel Komnenos, in charge of the army in the east. But then, a Seljuk army led by Alp Arslan invaded the eastern lands. They beat Manuel's army and even captured him. Key fortresses near the important Lake Van, like Artash, Manzikert, and Kilat, were taken by the Seljuks. With all the news about wars and money problems, it's easy to think the world is becoming a more dangerous place. Luckily, when it comes to your safety online, NordVPN has got you covered. It's a sad fact that online scams and phishing attacks are happening more often. We're all getting tons of emails from our banks, social media, and newsletters we don't want. It's easy to click on something you shouldn't. You probably have bank details, passwords, and private documents on your devices, so one wrong click can put all your private stuff at risk. But with NordVPN's protection, you can use their special tools to spot links that look dangerous. And if you do end up on a bad website, NordVPN's tools that hide your data will protect you from other attacks, like ones where someone tries to sneak in between you and the websites you visit. But even if something does go wrong, NordVPN's service that checks the dark web for your information is always working. It can warn you before you even know there's a problem. And if you click my link in the description to sign up now, you'll be supporting Alex Histoer, and you'll also get a huge discount on a 2-year plan, plus 4 extra months for free. So visit nordvpn.com/AlexHistoer, or use my link below and make yourself safer online right now with NordVPN. Since the main part of his army was busy fighting elsewhere, Alp Arslan wasn't really ready for a huge war with Romanus. So instead of facing a possible Byzantine attack, the Sultan offered a peace treaty to Constantinople. With the treaty signed, the Seljuk leaders turned to their fight with the Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt. Only a year later, in the spring of 1071, Romanus sent messengers to make a new treaty with the Seljuks. It looked like Romanus expected Alp Arslan to say no, because he was already getting an army ready to take back the lost forts near Lake Van. Alp Arslan met with the Roman messengers at his camp near Aleppo, which he was attacking at the time. But while they were talking, Seljuk scouts reported that the Byzantine army was on its way. Alp Arslan quickly rejected the treaty, stopped the attack on Aleppo, and headed for the Armenian border, gathering more soldiers from his allies along the way. As Romanus' army marched through the area of Sebastia, he got rid of his Frankish soldiers for hire. They had started acting like robbers, stealing from the local people and scaring them. By June of 1071, the emperor stopped at Theodosiopolis to get more supplies and figure out what to do next. Some of his generals thought they should go around Alp Arslan through northern Armenia and fight him deep in his own lands. Others wanted to stay put, make the local towns stronger, burn the countryside so the Seljuks couldn't find food, and just wait for the Sultan's army. The problem with waiting was that the Byzantine army might also run out of food if they stayed in one spot for too long, so the order was given to keep marching. After leaving Theodosiopolis, the army had to gather food and supplies for a 2-month journey. They also added more pack animals and carts, which made the army move a lot slower. But Romanus had heard that Alp Arslan's army was still far away in northern Mesopotamia, so he chose a slow and careful plan. He wanted to attack and take both Manzikert and Kilat at the same time, and then wait for the Sultan to make a move. But the emperor had the wrong information about where the Seljuk army was. Alp Arslan was not in Mesopotamia. He was actually less than 100 kilometers away, and his scouts were reporting every move the Byzantine army made. By August, the emperor's army arrived in the area of Lake Van. Thinking he had plenty of time before he'd meet the Seljuks, Romanus sent away about 20,000 soldiers. This force included Roussel with the Frankish mercenaries, and Joseph Tarkaniotes with the best Byzantine troops and archers. Their job was to take and hold the city of Kilat. The emperor then moved on Manzikert and took the city with his remaining 20,000 men. These were mostly new soldiers from Anatolia, Armenia, and Bulgaria, some Norman mercenaries, and horse archers from different Turkish groups. At the same time, Alp Arslan had no more than 30,000 soldiers, who were mostly on horseback. About 6,000 of them were heavily armored soldiers, while the rest were archers on horseback with light armor. As soon as the Sultan heard that Romanus had split his army, he rode out to fight him. The soldiers at the very front of the Byzantine army soon met the first group of Seljuk soldiers. They thought it was just a small group of raiders, so they attacked. As more Byzantine soldiers slowly arrived, they joined the fight, but they couldn't push the Seljuks back. A message was sent to the back of the army, asking for more soldiers, saying that a large enemy force was there. Romanos was annoyed that his frontline soldiers were stuck fighting what he believed was just a small raiding party. He wasn't happy about it, but he ordered more troops to the front. It took 2 hours for them to reach the fight. When the Seljuks saw more enemy soldiers coming, they pulled back, and the Byzantines chased them. We don't know for sure how many soldiers were in this first fight, but it was likely a fake retreat. With the rest of the Byzantine army left far behind, the frontline soldiers soon ran right into the main Seljuk army. A storm of arrows and a charge from Seljuk heavy cavalry hit the now separated Roman troops. What happened next was a total disaster for them. Very few survivors made it back to the emperor to tell him what happened, as night fell on August 24th. Now that he knew the whole Seljuk army was close, Romanus ordered his army to get ready for a counterattack the next morning. During the dark, moonless night, Alp Arslan also used the darkness to get his own army ready. Seljuk riders were checking the battlefield when they found and attacked a group of Oghuz soldiers for hire who were away from the main Byzantine army, buying supplies. The Oghuz soldiers were thrown into confusion and rushed back to their own lines. There, some of them were killed by their Byzantine allies, who thought they were the enemy Seljuks. During the night, another 1,000 Oghuz soldiers and their commander deserted and joined the Seljuks. The next morning, on August 25th, both armies were still setting up. Alp Arslan sent a messenger to Romanus, offering to make peace. The emperor didn't know that the Sultan was just trying to buy more time. The Roman commanders, Roussel and Tarkaniotes, didn't realize how close the Seljuk army was and were getting near Kilat. While they were marching, they were suddenly met by a large enemy force. It seems both commanders turned around and quickly retreated. A part of the Seljuk army chased them, causing some losses, but eventually they stopped. Alp Arslan was waiting for these troops to return, which is why he sent messengers to Romanus to slow things down. Meanwhile, we don't know if Roussel and Tarkaniotes planned to go back to Romanus. There are no records of them trying to search the area to find and rejoin the main Byzantine army. If they did try to find Romanus, the story has been lost to time. Whatever the reason, the 20,000 soldiers under Roussel and Tarkaniotes never returned to the emperor. A day later, on August 26, 1071, the entire Seljuk army was now all together. By a strange twist, the peace talks had also failed by this time. Romanus ordered his army to move forward. The Byzantines formed 3 large groups and spread their soldiers out in a long line to match the Seljuks' line. On the left were 5,000 horsemen, mostly from the Balkans. On the right were another 5,000 soldiers from Anatolia. A reserve force of 3,000 was made up of soldiers provided by nobles. About 2,000 horse archers served as a screen in front of the army. Romanus himself was in charge of the 5,000 soldiers in the center, which included 500 elite Varangian guard troops and other heavy foot soldiers. Even though Alp Arslan now had more soldiers, he told his men to continue a slow and careful pullback. He knew how powerful the Byzantine heavy soldiers and horsemen were. Slowly, the Seljuks formed a crescent or half-moon shape as they moved back, while their horse archers moved to the front to attack the sides of the slow-moving Byzantine army. After being hit by a constant storm of arrows for over an hour, the Byzantine heavy horsemen got so angry that they ignored their training. While most stayed in line, some of the horsemen at the front broke away and started chasing the quick Seljuk horsemen. The emperor didn't have many archers of his own, since most of them had left with the group going to Khilat. This now made his army weak against the Seljuk's many horse archers. The Byzantine horsemen chased the Seljuk horsemen into the hills to the south. They were slowly tricked into rough, hilly land, right into a trap. From the hillsides, thousands of warriors rushed down. Once the trap was closed, the killing was total. Even with this loss, Romanus and his generals kept his soldiers organized as they marched south. The emperor believed his plan would let his heavy foot soldiers crash into the Seljuk's curved line and force Alp Arslan into a real battle. But Alp Arslan's retreat took so long that the afternoon sun was starting to set, and the emperor knew his camp could be attacked during the night. As the two armies got closer to the hills, Romanus gave the signal with the army's flags for his soldiers to start an organized retreat back to their camp. Romanus turned his horse around and started to watch over the slow march back to the camp near Manzikert. By this point, the Byzantines were probably about 12 kilometers south of Manzikert. But turning a large army around is a very hard thing to do in any battle, and Romanus's army wasn't trained well enough to do it correctly. The army was made up of people from many different nations, so the order was given in several languages, which just made everyone more confused. As the Sultan watched the Byzantine army slowly move away, he knew this was the moment he had been waiting for. He saw his chance and launched a massive attack on the sides of the withdrawing and disorganized Byzantine army. He ordered all of his cavalry forward, and they crashed into the backs of the surprised Byzantines. The Seljuk reserve horsemen rode down from the hills to join the fight. Facing the cavalry attack on their sides, as they were already trying to turn around, the soldiers on the right side of the Byzantine army panicked and broke apart from the rest of the army. Many of these soldiers broke their lines and ran, trying to get to the safety of their camp or the walls of Manzikert. More and more Seljuk horsemen poured into the gap between the right and center groups, cutting through the broken lines and causing panic and confusion in the middle of the enemy army. With his right side now being attacked, Emperor Romanus desperately looked for his reserve soldiers, but to his shock, they were gone. The commander of the reserves, Andronikos Doukas, was part of a plot to get rid of the emperor, and was telling his men that Romanus had been defeated. The Greek reserve soldiers nervously watched from where they stood as Seljuk Turks swarmed over the main Byzantine lines. They then ran back to the Byzantine camp and Manzikert. Once the reserve soldiers left, the whole army started to run away in panic. The Armenian and European soldiers in the center now also joined the retreat. However, about 2,000 allied Turkic horsemen stayed with the emperor and were almost completely wiped out. As the center of his army was falling apart all around him, Emperor Romanus soon found himself surrounded by only his loyal Varangian guard. The commander of the left side, Bryennios, ordered his men to help the center, but his soldiers were attacked from behind by Seljuk cavalry. This broke their formation and pushed them off the battlefield. The emperor, surrounded by his Varangian guard, stood his ground. He even tried to turn his men south to get his broken army back together around his flags. But Romanus's army was destroyed, and the scared survivors would not come back. Seljuk horse archers kept away any soldiers who were brave enough to try and regroup. The Greek reserves chose to leave their emperor to his fate before they even joined the battle. Romanus kept fighting until his horse was killed under him. While fighting on foot, he was wounded in his sword hand and captured. His Varangian guard stayed with him until the very end, fighting to the last man. With the capture of Romanus, the Battle of Manzikert was over. Different reports give different numbers for the dead and captured, but somewhere between 2,000 to 8,000 Byzantines were killed, and another 4,000 were captured. It's not known how many soldiers the Seljuks lost, but some think it was around 2,200. The next day, Romanus was brought to Sultan Alp Arslan in chains and thrown at his feet. At first, the Sultan couldn't believe this tired prisoner was the Byzantine emperor, as they had never met. Romanus was identified by Seljuk messengers who had been to the Byzantine court. With the emperor on his knees, Alp Arslan stood up from his throne and made the shamed ruler kiss the ground. The Sultan then put his foot on Romanus's neck, in a ritual to show he had conquered him. Manzikert had been a huge victory for the Seljuk Empire, which opened the door for them to expand into Asia Minor. For the Byzantine Empire, the defeat was a disaster. Even though the number of soldiers lost wasn't as high as some stories said, Manzikert was still the clear beginning of the end for the Byzantine Empire. It led to the loss of most of Anatolia to the Seljuks, who would just keep pushing deeper into the empire's lands. The defeat at Manzikert and the new threat from the Seljuk Turks was also a big reason the First Crusade started 25 years later. Manzikert showed the rest of Christian Europe that the Byzantines could no longer claim to be the protectors of Christianity in the East. Long after the battle was over and everyone who fought in it was gone, the memory of Manzikert would hang over the dying Byzantine Empire. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you leave a comment, it really helps the channel out. You can also support us on Patreon and get early, ad-free access to our videos for just $1, or you can leave a one-time tip by clicking the thanks button below. As always, we'll see you in the next one. When Emperor Basil died in 1025, the borders of the Byzantine Empire were mostly secure. The emperor's wars had brought the Balkan Peninsula back under Roman rule. In the east, fixing up the old, worn-out forts and putting new soldiers in them had made the border stronger. But in the years that followed, from 1025 to 1066,